Now, from WNCT-9 on your side, a special presentation. The East's Hidden History, honoring Black history.
Hello and welcome to the East Hidden Black History Special. I'm Dante Jones.
And I'm Ken Watling. Eastern North Carolina is home to many hidden Black history facts. And over the course of the next half hour, we'll visit some of the places that helped shape the history of African Americans.
Which brings us here to Princeville and the Tar River, which is the route in which the town was built off of. As the oldest town chartered by blacks in America, Princeville was built on the premise of what every person, not just African Americans, strive for: the American dream and a safe place to call home.
Established as Freedom Hill by freed blacks in 1865 and incorporated as Princeville in 1885, the town has experienced its share of problems, most recently by the force of nature. Back in October, Hurricane Matthew barreled through, bringing flooding and devastation Princeville is still struggling to rebound from.
And at the heart of its continued comeback is the foundation that was established more than 100 years ago, and something that's still a secret to many.
It is a town founded by slaves, former slaves, who are full-fledged Americans who basically pioneered this earth, or the earth over there, into a town. They basically took a wetland and modified it, farmed it, engineered it, and made it to a place where you could live. They can trace their lineage all the way back to slavery, and probably some of them even to the voyage.
The river, the Tar River, actually, because that was actually when, after the slaves were freed, they came across the river. There they met the Union soldiers, and for a long time they did not realize that the war was over and that they were actually free. They were actually freed men, so they actually just sit around, and from there they just start building little shanty towns or little shanty shacks or whatever, and they start to grow there.
And it's just a love.
Right.
Just a love in the community. We lend a hand, help each other when there's a need to help each other.
Now, we've been flooded a lot and we've gone through quite a few hurricanes, but until Floyd came and now Matthew, those were our worst times that I can remember.
Floyd was, it's a bit different because everything was destroyed.
Yeah.
And it was like, we had to mend and we had to try to find each other, come together and unite so that we could find a path to start rebuilding.
It's been kind of rough, not too rough, but it's been kind of shaky. But I thank God I'm taking one day at a time.
There's still a lot that needs to be done in Princeville right now, cleaning. Still there are homes that still need to be cleaned out.
Right.
We're looking at about half the population. They are displaced because of the damage caused by the hurricane.
To a certain degree, we had gotten to the place where we kind of relaxed when we heard tell of a storm or a hurricane. As far as getting completely back the way it was, no, because even though we didn't lose anybody in the flood, and when Floyd came, a lot of our senior citizens got sick afterward, and we lost quite a few of them. That was devastating.
It's probably almost half elderly, but I think they are the backbone, but they infuse that, that pioneer spirit. That's what I would say, the word resilient. Yeah. A matter of fact, I think I broke down when I saw it go through one of my staff members' house, and I couldn't even really talk to her about it. And she just patted me on my back. She said, "We're gonna build it back, Danny." And I just, it was like it made me get tough. So I said, we're gonna build it back. So we work at this thing and we can make it work.
And I certainly think that the spirit of family here in Princeville, they'll work it out.
They started this town through adversity back in the 1860s, and they've been through this before with Hurricane Floyd, and no doubt they'll bounce back. Coming up, with abolitionists and allies sympathetic to the cause, the Underground Railroad provided an escape route for those enslaved.
And when we return, we take a closer look at how the passage ran right through the city of Washington, helping aid hundreds in their quest for freedom. Here at the Underground Railroad Museum at the Washington waterfront, the plight of slaves seeking freedom is told through pictures and storyboards.
It was back in the 19th century when a secret network of hidden routes and safe houses made their way through Beaufort County, marking a stop on a risky journey for those enslaved.
The Underground Railroad is really the story of people helping people.
The historic bright orange caboose is now open as the Washington Waterfront Underground Railroad Museum. It sat empty for many years until one organization decided to fill it with history.
The Underground Railroad was so secretive, there's not a lot of documented history here in Washington. And so to be able to share that and be able to pinpoint these things actually happen here.
Enslaved African Americans used to travel to Washington to hide among freed slaves. They then would get on a ship and travel as far as Philadelphia, Maine, and even Canada. The museum shows the struggles enslaved people endured. Besides being the curator at the museum, Lisa Jones and her husband Milton spend many of their days living out how life was for slaves in the 19th century in Beaufort County.
From Havens Mills right here down into Havens Gardens, they called it the bird path. Slaves would come here for flight, not necessarily to stay.
They conduct waterfront walking tours in Washington, dressed in character, telling the stories of local history.
South Bee Keys, we know it today as Keysville, which is right in the perimeter of Washington. He owned about 350 acres back in like 1840, 1850. Harkness Wooten, we know it as Wooten Town. Another African American, he owned all that land. And so if enslaved African Americans could get here, they could end up finding work with free African Americans who lived here.
As part of their tour, they explained Washington's role on the Underground Railroad.
Packets of black-eyed peas were supposed to be handed out to let you know that there's just too many slave owners in town looking for their escaped slaves.
The Jones are both retired and natives of the area. Lisa gained a strong interest in the subject while researching her own family history.
Found some of my relatives, like my grandmother Molly, great-grandmother Molly, on a plantation in Bath. And so I said, wow, I wonder how many other places I can find that had plantations in Washington. Well, I know the Washington Historical Society listed about 4, but when I started my research, I walked away with 79 plantations.
And that sparked her efforts, uncovering new information that folks in the area say they never knew. After 3 years of research, Jones successfully petitioned to have Washington added to the National Park Service's Underground Railroad Network to Freedom map. There are only a dozen places in North Carolina officially recognized.
When we turned our documents in, we had about a 134-page document. They included slave ads, which proved that vessel owners on the waterfront were told if slaves tried to get on those ships under penalty of law, they could be prosecuted for helping people escape.
Jones says the process wasn't easy, and there may be several places not only in Washington, but in other areas of the East that played a major role in our nation's history.
There are homes over on Main Street with a lot of stories about tunnels that led to the river, which may be true because they do sit back from the river. And a great many African Americans worked in those houses and passed those stories on. I keep hearing about them, but unfortunately I can't document it as true, but those are stories that never die.
Still ahead, after 4 black students at A&T State University held a nonviolent protest at a whites-only lunch counter in 1960, it sent a jolt throughout the South of demonstrations just like it.
Those protests include one by some Lenoir County high school students. We'll have this story, as well as introduce you to one Eastern North Carolina native at the forefront of the civil rights movement, when our special Honoring the East's Hidden Black History returns.
You are watching the East's Hidden History on 9 on Your Side.
No justice, no peace.
The demonstrations we see happening locally and across our nation today model the movement felt in Eastern North Carolina in the 60s. This plaque marks Standard Drug Number 2 in Lenoir County, the site of a sit-in at a whites-only lunch counter staged by 3 black high school students influenced by the Greensboro 4. It was part of a catalyst that would move forward the civil rights movement and coincide with the fight for equal rights by black sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. The 1968 strike lasted for 2 months, with more than 1,000 trash collectors standing up by walking out. In April of that year, their demands would be met. Their sanitation workers union was recognized and salaries were increased.
If we never had got that union, we might have been making $10 an hour now.
The progress would, however, come at the expense of the death of one of our nation's most iconic civil rights leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King. A bitter pill for our nation's history to swallow and a blow to the movement. One of the men at the forefront documenting Dr. King's evolution, even up to his death, was Eastern North Carolina native and legendary photographer BURK UZZLE.
I was there shortly after he'd been killed and then photographed his funeral as well, and him in the casket and all the rest.
These days, UZZLE is chronicling the plights of African Americans here in the East. His newest exhibition, Perceptions and Recognitions, African Americans of Eastern North Carolina, just debuted at the Greenville Museum of Art. The photographer says it was a long time coming.
Wow, that goes all the way back to the very beginning of 1960 when I was first photographing. My first magazine assignment was Martin Luther King for Jet magazine when I was like 19 or 20 years old or something like that. And then, of course, the 60s happened, and I was in the middle of a lot of the civil rights things. And then Martin Luther King got killed. And when I moved to Wilson, North Carolina, a few years ago, I decided to renew my activities. And it made my body of work from the minute I moved back to North Carolina was with the African American community. And I was doing a whole body of work in Wilson in my studio. And then, for a couple of 3 years. And then the Greenville Museum came over to take a look at the work, and they saw the work, and then they invited me to do a show here, and then to maybe create some new work of the local community here, people in Eastern North Carolina.
Nine on Your Side was there on the exhibit's opening night. Hundreds filed in to see the works of art. In the crowd, the very subject of UZZLE's work, hoping their participation would spark hope and inspiration to those who need it.
I just want people to see how special everyone is. Everyone has a story. It's just not that someone just gave up on life. There was a story behind that, and there are people that are able to come out of it, but they're able to do that with someone else's help. And that if people would just stop and listen and help their neighbor, we would have more success stories on this wall.
Words spoken as they come from the late Dr. King's mouth himself. The man, legendary photographer and Eastern North Carolina native BURK UZZLE, spent the early part of his career capturing. He shares in the sentiment, as does the museum.
This is a very important exhibit because what it does, it's bringing our cultures together. It's celebrating the wonderful success and contributions of our African American citizens, and it's an opportunity for Eastern North Carolina to really talk and celebrate about what our black community has contributed to our society.
The exhibit is open until April 30th. When we return, during trials and tribulations, sometimes all you have to hold on to is your faith and belief in a higher power.
Next, we'll take you to Craven County and visit the first sanctuary in the South established by freed blacks dating back to the 1800s. Welcome back to the E's Hidden History, honoring Black History Special. We're now in the historic city of New Bern, home to the first African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church in the South.
And as WNCT's Zora Stevenson reports, the church became a sacred place for free blacks who were looking for a house to worship in during a turbulent time for race relations in our nation's history.
I'm going to read from Mark, the 9th chapter.
Churches in the black community are more than just a place to practice faith.
James and John means a lot to me. It keeps me connected.
During the Civil War era, just like today, the black church offered a safe haven to its congregation.
There was a lot that needed to be held on to because we're talking about people coming from out of slavery.
And a lot of those people, after fleeing the trials and tribulations of a master and working on a plantation, made New Bern, North Carolina their home.
What we miss more than anything is that Craven County had the highest population of free African Americans in the state.
With so many freed blacks in the area, they needed a place to worship. So it's no surprise that the first AME Zion congregation in the South was right here in New Bern.
The Civil War was going on, and you had a lot of freed blacks that were here. And so this was a prime opportunity to pull some congregations together for the AME Zion Church, which is known as the Freedom Church.
The Freedom Church, which eventually turned into the People's Church.
As the church progressed, they got pews.
Reverend Robert Kelly says this church was a hub in the Craven County community, a hub that still stands today. First built over 100 years ago, burned down in the 1920s, and later rebuilt. A piece of history in the middle of downtown New Bern.
Not only because we are sort of proud of the history of this church, we are humble. We are very humble.
CARTHENIA MANN is a longtime church member. For decades, she's called St. Peter's home.
It brought people together. They could come here to worship.
She loves her faith, just like so many others do.
Notice that parents and grandparents would say, but I still have my faith. I still have my trust in God that everything is going to be all right.
And a voice came out of the clouds saying.
In New Bern, Zora Stevenson, 9 on your side.
Coming up, segregation laws didn't stop one aspiring Pitt County entrepreneur from sharing his dream with whomever wanted to taste it.
Next, how one Farmville man concocted a formula that led to one of the East's most celebrated barbecue hotspots. Cooked slow and over low heat, barbecue isn't only a staple here in eastern North Carolina. For many, it's a way of life.
Yeah, and flavored with the influence of the African slaves, there are a wide variety of sauces that contribute to its taste.
For one Pitt County man back in the 1940s, the critical ingredients of word of mouth and a tasty product equaled a recipe for success that's still enjoyed today.
WNCT's Tamara Scott has our story.
If I've learned one thing living in eastern North Carolina, it's that people know their Southern barbecue, especially at a place like this, Jack Cobb and Son. But the question is, do you know its history?
I had a sandwich and a large tea.
Okay.
In the early 1940s, those were common words heard for miles around.
It was nothing like Cobb's collard green.
But you only heard it from one group, African Americans.
You had plenty of restaurants only served white. So blacks didn't really, if we went to a white restaurant, we had to go to the back door.
Ben Johnson has been a regular customer since the beginning.
Back in the 40s, I rode the school bus over here from Rock Spring area.
He says the clientele looks a lot different today than it did during the Jim Crow era.
How long you been here today?
For an hour.
So what was the percentage of numbers that you saw?
Definitely some more white.
That's right.
That's in part because of Rudy Cobb and his father.
In the 60s, I had a lot of white people that really wanted his barbecue, but at first they were like afraid to come.
Due to Jim Crow laws in the South, many people were separated due to race, so not everyone could taste these great collards and hush puppies.
So Jack and his son took matters into their own hands.
And I used to deliver to their house, so it grew. They got too many, everybody wanted at 12 o'clock, so that's when we invited them to come down. And I told them, nobody gonna bother them, I would protect them, you know.
Many years later, they are not only attracting people from different backgrounds, but people from all over.
We're from Asheville, and we've been driving all over the state eating true North Carolina barbecue.
This is John Kirtley's first time eating Cobb's.
You can tell there's a lot of heart and soul put into that queue in there.
He says it's the atmosphere that draws you in.
I think this is somewhere you guys would like to come back to after your tour?
Yeah. I'd come back here. I'd definitely come back here.
Others agree that's what makes them stand out.
They got the most famous restaurant that's around.
Rudy says it's not about that for him, it's about what you leave with in this bag.
I like for them to know that I like to greet them. I like to know that I did put some love in the food that I cook, you know, that try to make it not only just, you know, so they can feel it, that it be good, that they'll remember that something a little special about it.
In Farmville, Tamara Scott, 9 on your side.
And of course, we can't talk about the authenticity and richness of Eastern North Carolina cuisine without trying some of it, can we? As Ken is already experiencing here, is that good to you? Mm-hmm. All right, then I'm going to try a little bit myself with the collards.
Actually, you're going to eat all those hush puppies?
I will. Don't touch them.
Okay, I won't. Thank you for taking this journey with us to explore the East's hidden black history. I'm Ken Watley.
And I'm Dante Jones. Thanks for joining us.